Hey there guys, and welcome to another Factorio Friday Facts discussion number 318, new tooltips, and I'm joined by Bombug as always.
Hello, everyone.
So, we got a good one this week. Not that others are bad, but this one's really cool. Lots of really great stuff. So, they just released 17.73 with 0.74 coming very soon. This is just some bug fixes and further pathfinding improvements, and we hope to be able to make the release as stable next week. So that's good. Oh. So, the majority of this is new tooltips. This is written by Twinson. Basically, as a big part of their GUI overhaul, which they've been working on for a long time, and they've implemented part of it in 17 so far, but like not the whole thing. One part of it is new tooltips. So we worked not only on updating the style, but also how the information is structured and sorted, adding missing information, removed irrelevant information, etc. It concerns the entity, item, recipe tooltips, but almost all tooltips were touched one way or another. Many things were changed. I will go through some more important changes. So we have a new look. We can see here. First thing to see is the new style Albert has worked on. They now have the same general style as the technology tooltips. We try to keep them as compact as possible, as sometimes there is quite a lot of information to show. First, the screenshots in this blog post, or for the screenshots in the blog post, I set the background to be non-transparent. Unfortunately, they don't blend very well with our blog background, but in game you'll notice that they are slightly transparent and also have a blurring effect. Together with the shadows, they integrate nicely in the game. So it's fairly similar to the current version, but just much cleaner looking, a little more colorful, and much better information displayed.
Yeah, I'm definitely liking it. I think the research tooltips look a little cleaner and kind of fit the newer style that the game is pushing. The older tooltips do feel a little bit uh, mm, militaristic, you know? They're just
Mm-hmm.
kind of bare bones. So
Yeah, basic,
this
yeah.
feels nice.
Exactly. And it's a lot more detailed information displayed as well. So, like, consumes electricity. That's not something that's displayed for a construction bot right now, I don't think.
Mhm.
It shows the capacity and the speed. It may show that, like, on the right-hand side GUI thing now. I don't really remember. There's a lot of info always, but it's just a lot more information, which is good. And then moving on to categorization. As you may have noticed already, some common properties like electricity consumption are grouped into categories. Some common properties. Most of the work was defining these categories and trying to figure out what makes sense. These categories help grouping the information, but also give more context to some entity properties. Properties that are directly related to the selected entity type are placed in the root category that has no name. This to avoid having pointless categories like inserter and transport belt. So, again, another example: personal road port, some description, placed in equipment grid. I like the little icon by that too. Consumes equipment grid electricity, which is really good. That it like actually specifies that. And then pretty much the other info, I think it's about the same as it is now, but it just looks a lot cleaner with some extra information.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I was actually pretty confused the first few times I made equipment on how to use it.
Mm-hmm.
So that it clearly states placed in equipment grid is good for people like me.
Yeah,
Sometimes I need that help, okay?
yeah. It's there's a lot going on in the game. It can get really confusing. So then there's new information. The place where the categorization really shines is in the tooltips of power generating entities. Now it's much clearer what each entity does and what the ratios are. Entities related to nuclear power were especially confusing. Creating an optimal nuclear setup was almost impossible without the help of the wiki. Now all the important information is here. So you can see like the boiler tooltip says exactly what it does, exactly how much pollution, it consumes water, consumes fuel, generates steam, says exactly how much it outputs and what the temperature is that it outputs. And then like a steam engine, says exactly what it does, what it consumes, how much, the temperature, and then it generates electricity and how much. So just like very, very clear. You can just very easily look and be like, okay, well, boiler outputs 60 a second, steam engine out consumes 30. Boom, I can have two steam engines per boiler. Easy.
That is excellent. So I have a question for you on these. Do you think that the people playing Factorio and seeing these things for the first time just kind of intuitively know how to use these things? How to get heat from the nuclear reactor to the heat exchanger and the pipes and the steam turbine? Or do you think new players struggle with it and have to like see other people do it or practice themselves?
Um, I think I think both for normal like steam engine power and especially nuclear power, um, newer players struggle a lot. I've I mean basically like this says like to even build like a nuclear setup in general, you may have to like look up how to do it because it's not super intuitive.
I agree. So I tried to build a nuclear setup my first time a while back, and I could not figure out how to do it, and I had to look it up online. So yeah, I definitely think that having these very clearly show, oh, generates heat, consumes heat, generates steam, that's going to be really nice to have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's definitely something newer players struggle with. And particularly with nuclear power, which as we move down, you can see the nuclear power tooltips are just much clearer. You know, it says exactly what it does. It consumes fuel, generates heat. The heat output increases when placed next to other reactors. Um, and then, you know, constant consumption of 40 megawatts generates heat. Output 40 megawatts. Um, you know, I mean, it still may take like some thinking for sure, but I think this is just a lot clearer.
Yeah, I think it's the difference between finding out how it works versus seeing how it works and trying to make it optimal. You know, Factorio is all about making it optimal and really nice and usable and scalable, but you don't want to have people struggling to figure out how to just use the thing at all, right?
Right, exactly. Um, so then moving down to entity tooltips and item tooltips generally show the same properties, but I try to make the entity tooltips show state information when possible, which I think is really great, which we'll see below. So, for example, here's how the item tooltips above look when the entities are placed in the game. So not like in your craft menu, but actually if you mouse over it when they're placed. Categories are even more useful now since properties like the fuel inside the machine or the stated fluid output pipe can now be grouped inside the relevant categories. So offshore pump, it says what it does, but it also now shows like a current like state of it, like pumping speed 41 a second out of 1200 a second, um, and like the water temperature and stuff, and then same with the boiler. You know, it's like consuming 41.2 a second out of 60 a second. Um, Max consumption of fuel, all that. It's just like really, really cool information that's like real time, basically.
Yeah, that is excellent. Whenever you're looking for any sort of like block in your system, you know, like something's not coming through the pipeline, you're trying to hunt down and find where it is, this kind of information is going to be especially useful.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, looking at this, I think they changed around and added some information for power. On the steam engine one, it says power output, and it's like X amount out of X amount, and then available power. Um, I don't think it reads like this now, and it's something that's always been like very confusing and counterintuitive to people the way it reads in the game currently. Um,
Yeah, so currently it says performance and available performance, and I still don't know what that means.
yeah,
So this makes it much clearer.
yeah, this makes it way better. So very, very nice. And then other entities have more properties added to them, such as inserter rotation speed, rolling stock weight, meaning like cargo wagons, laser turret energy use per shot, flamethrower turret burning and slowdown effect, and many more. So this stuff is
Yes.
super cool.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. Because like you actually have no idea what like train weight is unless you look into the game files currently, because it doesn't show it. I'm pretty sure.
So that affects like the time it takes to get up to speed and the break speed, right?
Correct. Yeah.
D does it affect like fuel consumption as well, or
Good
because
question. It might.
Yeah, I
Um,
hadn't even like really thought about weight until reading this.
yeah,
Didn't think it was a thing really.
yeah. None of that affects the top speed because like regardless of how big a train is, it'll always have the same top speed. But um, the weight of it compared to the amount of power in it definitely changes the like acceleration and braking speed, and it may affect the fuel consumption too. I'm not sure. So yeah, that's an interesting point. Uh, Tooltip separation. The recipe tooltip was kind of a Frankenstein's monster of recipe information, item information mashed together. We also had the problem with what properties to show when a recipe has multiple output products. The solution was to split tooltips and show a multi-tooltip when hovering a recipe. Now when hovering over a recipe in the crafting menu, the recipe tooltip will be shown. An additional item tooltip will be shown for every product as a separate tooltip. If the item tooltip has a description and properties to show, while this improves things quite a bit in vanilla, complex mods will benefit from it even more. Recipes can now have their own textual description, and each separate product can be explained independently if necessary. So, um, like this is an example. So, Energy Shield Mark II. This is the recipe. It shows what it takes to make it. And then the secondary tooltip is basically the one that we saw, like I think they use the same one. No, it was a personal report, but then this one like basically explains what it does.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. Maybe they could change the coloring or the bordering slightly to differentiate between the two, but other than that, it's very clear which is the recipe and which is the item now.
Yeah, I think that's actually a good idea to like maybe change the border color a little bit or something, or um, yeah, to kind of differentiate it a bit because that might be a little confusing at first.
Overall, though, really good change. It is kind of weird looking at a recipe and seeing you need these items and here's the max health. And you're like, oh,
Oh,
okay.
okay. I don't know what it does, but
Yeah.
so the same mechanism is used for the tooltip shown when hovering a logistics request in the character window. So this means that an item tooltip will look the same regardless if it's shown while hovering a recipe, an item in the player inventory, or logistic request. No more mixing of information. So logistic requests 4 out of 50 satisfaction on the way, logistics storage, and then this is like if you're mousing over a logistic request for inserters, it also is going to tell you what an inserter is. Basic, well, kind of. Doesn't actually say what it does, but
Yeah.
that's I would think that's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, you,
So
you learn that pretty early on what an inserter does. So,
yeah, and I mean it's in the name too.
yeah.
Um, so that's really cool. I do like the rotation speed and stuff. That's super cool. Um, so most implementation is done. Just a few tweaks and bug fixes left to do, plus any changes based on your feedback. If all goes well, the new tooltips will be part of one of the next experimental future releases, which we hope to release in the next couple weeks. After that, more GUIs to come. Fantastic. This is really
Yeah.
good. Super nice polishing to bring the game closer to 1.0.
Yeah, and this is always such a big project redoing things like this because, like they said, they fixed it up in one spot in your inventory, but then also when you're hovering over something and in your logistics and in the recipes. And it's like you just want to change one bit of styling, but you have to apply it everywhere. And there's always little rules and things in each spot. So I'm glad they've finally got this almost finished up.
Yeah,
The tweaks and
exactly.
bug fixes left, right?
Yeah, for sure. Uh, Moving down to a part about robots from our seating, and this is interesting because he actually streamed working on this. I watched some of it when I had time. So our seating, it's really cool. Our seating fairly often streams his dev work, so you can actually see like behind the scenes, like the coding and testing that goes into what he does. Um, but
That is very stressful for him. Kudos to him for doing that.
yeah, he seems pretty chill. I mean, like he seems to have a pretty good handle on it, which is good. So one of the things I've wanted to tinker with for some time is having construction robot build multiple things at the same time. Construction robots spend the vast majority of their time just flying around doing very little work and can technically use the cargo capacity research, but only ever use it for logistic related things. One of the main things which stopped me from looking into this in the past was performance concerns. Figuring out which thing or things a robot can work on in a batch gets expensive very quickly, and with robots existing in the tens of thousands range, I can't just make each one 5 times as expensive, which definitely makes sense. A few weeks ago, I thought I finally figured out a way to at least make robots able to batch build tiles without losing too much performance. The thing is, when tiles are built, they are built in large square patterns, so I can safely assume there will be other tiles to be built directly next to a given tile that hasn't already been assigned a robot to work on. After some experiments and then several reworks to optimize what was already quite fast, I was satisfied with the result. One of these GIFs, here we go. So this is basically the result now. It builds way faster. They're way more efficient with their time and carrying capacity and stuff like that.
Yeah, that is very nice. I definitely feel like a logistics robot a lot of the time. Construction robot just wandering around. I can do one thing, but I have to do a lot of wandering to do. This is a much smarter pattern for them to follow.
Yeah, if only we could too, huh?
Yeah.
So, of course, the next question people will ask is, what about doing it for entities? He could, but it doesn't make as much sense for them because they aren't always one by one. Performance drops off quickly as the size grows. Tiles are always one by one, aren't typically built in tightly packed squares like tiles are, and in the common case, it would just make robots more expensive to run while rarely making them build faster. So for now, they just batch build tiles, which, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Like, most things except maybe belts, which I've seen a lot of people ask about in the forums and stuff after this, but most things except belts aren't really built in a like predictable pattern like tiles would be. So I can definitely see the issue with this. And this side, yeah.
I think to some extent too, you want to encourage people to build more bots, because if the bots are super efficient, then you're gonna make it maybe a little too easy, right?
Yeah.
Like if your personal RoboPort was able to build all of the belts and all of the factories super fast, then you wouldn't necessarily want RoboPorts everywhere, and you wouldn't need to keep them filled up. You know, you can do a lot of it just by your own personal RoboPort, and that would be maybe a little too easy.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely, a balance point they have to consider. So I think I definitely understand the perspective. And this is a comparison down here. Boss Kid made this nice setup using 2 4s with different cargo capacity bonuses. So obviously the one on the right, the robots have a higher cargo capacity than the ones on the left. But this is just showing like with the changes are seating made that there now is like a noticeable difference because they can actually take advantage of their cargo capacity when placing tiles.
Yeah, that's really nice, especially just seeing all of the robots charging up afterward. Like that shows they had to travel a lot. They used up their whole internal storage.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be sitting around waiting for a while before you can walk on that nice paved road.
Yeah, exactly. But you do notice that with the higher cargo capacity, these dudes build that fast. Like, it's real quick. Yeah, as with the tooltips, the tile job batching will be released as part of our next experimental feature release, which we're calling internally Stable 3. 17.69 Stable 1, 17.74 will be Stable 2, etc. So as always, let us know what you think on our forums. And I think that's it. You have any other thoughts?
I'm excited to see what they do with this sort of algorithm in the future. They said it's expensive to do calculation on just like normal factory building, but they've got a bit of incremental progress here with the tiling. Maybe we will see more of it. Maybe some belt optimizations in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
It's good to just build off of what's already there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they could definitely improve even further if they wanted to in the future at some point. But But yeah, I think that's it. Overall, a really, really great Friday Facts. I really look forward to these new GUIs being implemented in the bot changes. People who like to concrete their entire base or entire world, for that matter, will love these robot changes for placing tiles for sure.
Yeah, this is going to be real nice for them.
Yeah, so that's going to do it, guys. As always, thank you so much for watching. We appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed. Leave your thoughts below and questions and on the forums and Reddit, and we will see you later.
See ya.